All right, everyone's been asking about Grand. Like, how was Grand? What was it like? What happened? Look, I'm probably not going to do a series on it. I'm just not. There's so much that went on, and a lot of it is stuff you find out that has, wouldn't say nothing to do with fishing. I'll talk about it on my private channel because it'll be more of a conversation piece rather than let me show you stuff. A lot of the times in the series. I like to show you things. I just made a series about Ray Roberts and the TTO Championship. And the worst video I had by far was me shaking fish off. But that was actually the one time I actually figured more stuff out, was the day I shook them all off. But no one wants to see people shake fish off, so I get it. This isn't one of those. So there was a lot of things that happened at Grand. One of them was this. This was day one of practice. I finally kind of, around 11 o'clock, I started figuring some stuff out. I went fishing for a long time that morning and stuff. And I wouldn't say I went to the best stuff by far. By any means went to the best stuff. I actually tried to stay away from people. There was a 2-day tournament going on. I didn't want to get in those guys' ways. So I chose not to go to certain places in the morning time that I thought, and who knows, maybe no one was there, but I tried to kind of like just do some different stuff and let those guys fish. I didn't want to interfere with them. But 11 o'clock though, I was struggling pretty bad, and there's a pocket. No one's in the pocket. No one was in there. There really wasn't anyone around, so I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go in this pocket and fish. I'm not gonna fish the boat docks because I assume people were gonna fish some boat docks, but I was like, let's just mess around in here and see what happens. And I start catching fish. Now, I haven't live scoped much on Grand. This is really my first time to ever live scope. So I was curious as to what Grand was going to look like live scoping. Every lake is set up different. Every lake has trash fish in it and different kinds of fish. And some lakes are really easy. So it's like every single fish you look at is a bass, just about. A bass or a crappie. Some have white bass in there. Some have stripers in there. Some have smallmouth in there as well. And then there's a whole bunch of other lakes that have just a bunch of junk in there. They got carp and drum and catfish and gar and all kinds of other trash fish that get mixed up in the whole deal, so it'll make it hard. I went into this place and I started throwing at these fish and I started catching them. And I was going, well, wait a minute. I'm seeing a lot on the screen, like way too much to be bass. And I want to emphasize this by saying Grand without live scope is never a 50 fish a day place. Grand is usually, especially in the fall, you catch 10 or 15 keepers a day, or 10 or 15 fish, you're gonna have a big bag, and chances are you're not gonna catch too many small ones. But like I said, I've never live scoped on this lake. So I'm sitting here going, is everything I'm seeing on here bass? Because I'm seeing a ton of fish shallow. In this pocket, there's some shad back there, and it's wild. So here it is. I had to really look through the footage because I was like, God, I remember seeing a bunch on the screen because I was going, what makes me want to fish here? One, I got bit really easy. I remember looking on the screen, and at any point in time on live scope, I could see sometimes 4 and 5 fish, right? And I'd be throwing at one, and sometimes another one would come catch it, and I'd go, okay, but it still felt like I caught more fish than what I did. Caught 4 or 5 in like 20 minutes. And then I was like, oh yeah. Because like what I said, when I go back through the footage, I just kind of look for the fish catches. I saw the fish I shook off. So I shook off like 7 or 8. So, I probably should have had like 12 fish in like 20 minutes. It felt like one every 2 minutes. And I was going, okay, yeah, there was a bunch. But like I said, shaking fish off really doesn't look that great on camera. So I catch some, I caught a keeper or two, and I was going, this is gonna be kind of easy, right? Of all the fish in there, I wasn't even there that long. How many of them did I shake off that were keepers? How many of them are in there? This is just getting, I'll go through the numbers and catch fish. That's what happened pretty much throughout practice. It wasn't hard to catch fish when I first got there. Like, it was fairly easy. Stick around for the end of the video. I will tell you what I caught them on, because you might want to know this. Save you a whole bunch of money. Now, I didn't practice this at all until I never went back in there. I went back in there and looked at it, I think the last day of practice, middle of the day. Because my plan was I'm going to go after big ones till like 11 o'clock. Because I felt at 11 o'clock it started getting harder to catch big ones doing what we were doing. And I was going, okay, I don't need 5 of those big ones. I just need 2 or 3 of them. And then hopefully I can catch 2 or 3 by that time. And then I'll just go catch some keepers. And then maybe I go after big ones some more, even though I can maybe only get 1 bite in the next 3 or 4 hours, things like that. Went in there, put the trolling motor down. I wasn't in there 2 minutes. And I see like a bait ball and I see 3 or 4 and they're going after it. And I throw over there and it was instant, get one on. I think there's a boat around. So I shook it off and I was like, hey, I got one on. So tournament day rolls around. Here it is. Now we had an off day. Our off day was on Wednesday. It was probably one of the nicest days out there. It was super nice, super warm, dead calm, sunny, and whatever. And we were just upset we didn't get to go fishing. I'd only caught 2 keepers up to this point. I thought I was going to get more bites. I had 2 keepers. They were both decent ones. They weren't bad ones. They were both like 2.5 pounders. And I was going, okay, here we go. Let's just get a limit and then we'll go do whatever we need to do. Because I hadn't fished this way yet. I hadn't gone, and I tried to stay with my plan till like 10 or 11. And here I am. And I go in there and it was definitely different. But I eventually, I didn't catch fish right away. Like it took me about 10 minutes to find them. And then I found them and here we go. So I really wasn't finding them on bait. I had been finding them on bait, but I'm just randomly going down this shoreline. There's nothing there. I just see a bunch of fish. And I throw in there and I'm like, the first one's not bad. It's one that you would measure. You know, I'm pretty sure it's not going to keep. But I'm like, okay, 13.5 incher, no big deal. So, like I said, I have just started and I'm just throwing same spot. And it's just one after another. Now, if you're asking, there's a couple things you might be asking, okay? Why are you catching little ones? Can you not tell they're little ones on the screen? I'm throwing at like 30 of them sometimes, or 10 or 15 or 20, and they're all going after it. I can't make the one that I want to bite, because sometimes you can see that there's better ones there. I can't make the one I want to bite, right? There's a bunch of them there. And so I'm just going through them. And I'm going, okay, small one, no big deal. This is fine. I'm not too worried about it yet because I haven't moved. I'm power pulled down and I'm just sitting there. And so I finally kind of hook into one that's like, oh, cool, it's a keeper. Where I feel it's a keeper. I can just tell it's a little bit bigger.
I don't know if he's going to keep it up.
By no means. I don't have a limit yet. Normally I wouldn't care. But I was like, man, maybe net him, I guess, whatever.
Care if I throw it there and drag across the bottom?
Yeah.
Good? Okay, now.
Yeah, treble hook. Yeah. Now, there's 2 things I want to get into, okay? And this is just kind of help you out. We stopped catching fish there. Remind you though, there's fish everywhere. I just, I just want y'all to realize this. When I say there's fish everywhere, I want you to see where I'm casting. Like, make a note of this. And sometimes co-anglers, I'm not saying they should understand this, but like, I don't even know how else to say this. But watch where I'm casting. I am throwing at this dock only because there's like 40 of them there. When I turn my trolling motor, there's 2 or 3 over here, 1 over here, 3 over here, 1 over there. And every time I catch one, I'm bringing a bunch to the boat. Right? So if you can tell, I'm moving, my boat's getting moved around. And I'm just telling you all, if you've ever used LiveScope, you know that when there's big schools like that, 9 times out of 10, when you catch one, the school comes to you. So I'm catching them. There's that many of them. And now they're spread out like crazy. But if you noticed, even in practice, they were always spread out. Right? I'm throwing more at docks right now, mind you, because look, I was just right there to the right of the screen. That's where I just was. All I've made it is like 30 yards down the bank. Now, look, I'm throwing it. I'm not throwing at this boat dock. You can see where I just threw. I'm throwing way out in front of it. Now I'm getting to my point here in a second, right? So now I'm not throwing at the boat dock, right? I'm just throwing out here in the middle. I just, sometimes, my co-angler was like, hey, can I throw in that spot and drag through there? And I wanted to be like, hey man, you've been dragging around fish. I try not to sometimes tell my co-anglers too much because like, I've been doing a long time. I get a lot of different reactions. I've got a lot of different comments. I've got a lot of different personalities. I can't stress that enough. I've just been doing it a long time, and I just don't say much to them sometimes about what's going on. I had a guy practice with me, and he even was like, he was going through the motions of this all happened in practice every day. Where I'd catch 40, 50, 60 fish sometimes, and sometimes he would drag through and never get a bite. And so throughout practice, he started trying to figure out other ways to catch them, right? Because he realized dragging through them while they're on shad, like with a bait, you're not going to catch anything. And so, I was like, it's not that I don't want you dragging through that where I was casting, but that wasn't the deal. It wasn't where you were casting. It was the bait you were throwing, like dragging through them, which kind of comes back to the whole point of like, sometimes when we used to fish these places without LiveScope, we'd just be dragging around through fish that we could catch. And that's not what we should have been doing. This is pretty interesting right here.
Okay, now.
Yeah, treble hook. Yeah. So anyways, I ended up catching a fish that had a treble hook in its mouth. So I had to get the treble hook out. My pliers were all stuck together, but I had to get the treble hook out of the fish's mouth before I let it go. There's a couple of things to this video. One, I was kind of sharing y'all a little bit about what happened in Grand that I caught. I don't know how many. I didn't go through here and count. I didn't even show them all because I was just getting the ones where it was like back to back. I caught them on different stuff. I'm not throwing my spinning rod anymore. It didn't seem to matter in the sense of the bait mattered, yes, to a degree. It just had to be off the bottom. You couldn't drag through there. But I was like, no matter what I did, I don't know if I got unlucky, what it was, in the sense of I caught that many fish and couldn't catch a keeper. And it didn't, and they got really a lot smaller today, it seemed like. I don't know what it was. I didn't stay here long. I stayed here less than an hour. Caught, it felt like 25 or 30. I'm not really sure. And I was going, okay, I had enough of that. I'm like, I'll go catch keepers somewhere else because I have no idea what was going on. But that's kind of what happened. That it just seemed like I had this school of fish. It wasn't even a school. It was just an entire pocket full of fish that I just couldn't seem to like. I was like, I've had enough. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I don't care if I even catch a keeper. It doesn't feel like I'm going to catch a bigger one. And it kind of felt like that in practice that I could. It's hard to explain. It felt different in practice. The fish looked bigger. They weren't schooled up as much. They were spread out. I don't know if there was pressure going on in here or what. But there were two things going on. Two things in the video. There's always things in the video I want to share with y'all. One, I don't ever know why those fish changed. I don't know why it was different in there. I don't know why it felt like there were not as many big ones. I do know that, like I said, I'll share a little bit of my private channel of some things that went on in the tournament. It's going to be, like I said, more of a talking piece about what went on, about what I saw happen and change and continually change over the next couple of days, and where I saw things miss. So there won't be a lot of, there's not going to be this like fishing series. The other thing is for coiners sometimes what you see, right? If you don't go practice, like my guy that traveled with me would have gone in there and never worried about where I threw. It didn't care about any of that. He realized that the bait presentation was key. Presentation, not necessarily the bait. I caught him on two different baits. I guarantee you, Alabama rig, you could have done a lot of different things in there. You just didn't need a drag on the bottom. Like I said, I don't know how else to say it. There's times sometimes when I'll say something, and times I don't want to be the guy. I'm just telling you from my deal. I don't want to be the guy that says, hey, you should do this. And then in their head, they're not comfortable doing that. They don't want to do that. And then they're like, don't catch anything. And then I just feel like, we get out of the boat and the guy's like, yeah, he told me to do this and I didn't catch anything. It's just better sometimes if I just don't say that and I just let them figure it out or not figure it out. Okay. So yeah, I think it was multiple times throughout the day he had kind of asked, hey, can I throw in there? And I was going, man, if I just turn my trolling motor and you saw there's fish all out there too. It was a pocket. They were scattered all through, and they roamed around that entire pocket. And if you can see, it didn't matter where I was at. I wasn't throwing to a specific spot or to structure. And there was just fish everywhere. And it's just one of those places. And it's one of those hard deals that sometimes I wouldn't have ever known that without live scope. So it wasn't necessarily the live scope showed me that that's what fish do a lot of times in the fall or on bait and stuff like that. And a lot of times we're dragging through them on the bottom, and that's why we're not catching fish. We have all figured that out. And I'm not saying I think he could have just thrown a little swim bait around out there and dragged around. Maybe they wouldn't have been a little swim bait. Maybe they wouldn't have been I saw some guys catch them on an Alabama rig around me in the tournament. One of the guys who made the cut, made the top 10. He was throwing an Alabama rig. You could have caught fish on an Alabama rig and things like that. But like I said, it's a learning experience for some. Take from this what you will. I just thought I'd share that. That's one of the things. I don't know if I'll go through other stuff, but that was one of the things that happened to me at Grant. And I was like, because the amount of fish I caught over 2 days was insane. It was just insane. And sometimes you catch keepers, and I pulled up on other places and caught keepers, but a lot of things changed. I had a lot of these places at the beginning of practice. I had less and less of them, and that had to do with weather and things like that, and the water. I guess the water temperature or something. We noticed it was changing, but even though it's changing, what do you do? We kind of figured it out on the final day what was going on. Didn't mean we were going to catch bigger fish, but we kind of figured out where they were going. I'd rather have wanted them where they were at, but it is what it is. Anyways, I thought I'd share with you. This is one of the little things that happen. Sometimes at these tournaments, it's not just one thing. So this affected some of the schooling fish. Or I wouldn't even say, it's not like they were schooling. We kind of called them schooling because you can kind of see them schooling underneath the water. But this is kind of what happened with that little thing. We had quite a few patterns, and it seemed like all of them changed a little bit, just enough, and none of them for the better. But yeah, this is one of them. So I thought I'd share that with y'all. Oh, and I'll say this. If you notice, I think I caught every single fish on the exact same bait. They make all these minnows and everything like that. Baby Z2. Baby Z2. I'll leave a link in the description. If I was there, I guarantee you go through $40 worth of baits in a day, tearing stuff up. I didn't even get away with one pack of Baby Z2s. Just letting y'all know, just throwing that out there. Anyone that stayed around for this, yeah. If you stayed around to the end, that's what I was catching them on. All right. See y'all.